Hey everyone, welcome to Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast. I am Heather Hoops Matthews, here today with Matthew Roberts, Maynard Nexon healthcare attorney. Matthew, good to be with you.
Good to see you. Glad to be here.
We are coming to you live from NCLifeSci. This is the annual meeting bringing together regional and global leaders in the life sciences industry to talk about some of the key issues facing the industry today. And we are delighted to have the leader behind and ahead of all of that here with us. Laura Gunter is the president of NCLifeSci. First, congratulations on another great annual meeting.
Oh, well, thank you. It really has been such a tremendous honor to lead the organization, to carry on after the passing of Sam Taylor, who led it for 27 years. We're now in our 30th year. And I think evidenced by today, there is tremendous appetite for all that we're doing, and the ecosystem in North Carolina is strong.
Yes, it sure is. And just the industry is just growing and so dynamic. What were some of the key issues that you covered in today's annual meeting?
You know, gosh, as an organization that really focuses on policy and advocacy work, we wanted to make sure that we brought some of the flavor of that into our discussion. So we always want to hear a little bit about why North Carolina. So we've heard that from Ed Hernandez with Lily, talking about kind of why they're in North Carolina, all the benefits of being in North Carolina, the collaboration that exists here. We followed that with a group talking about patient advocates and how do we manage conversations with legislators. You know, we're interested on the drug production discovery side, with putting forth a product and obviously having to be a commercial enterprise and making money, but how do we balance that with the ultimate goal, which is serving the patient and finding access? And so we think that partnering with patient advocate groups always makes a lot of sense. And how do we work with them so that the messages that we're taking to our state and congressional leaders is a similar one that they're hearing from the patients, so that we can align on these topics. From there, we've looked at, we do need to cut costs. How do we do that? Well, AI is one of the opportunities that we have to really start, using it as a tool, not as a replacement for people, but using it as a tool to really drive speed. Ned talked again about how fast they were able to start manufacturing. So how do we do things at a little faster pace? How does the regulatory world work, and how do we use AI to further that opportunity so that we can cut costs but still be bringing valuable medicines to patients? And then finally we ended, with a look back and forward. What does it take? What have we done right? And then what are still the remaining unmet needs, and tying that into the power of innovation. And it still, I think North Carolina is a great manufacturing economy, but we're also a great innovation economy. And mixing those two pieces, I think is really something that North Carolina does well. And I think we saw that today. And it just, I think, really kind of brought it all together. So it was a great way to sort of end the day, I think, with that future looking.
Well, congratulations again for another great meeting, for bringing all these folks together. North Carolina's had a track record of demonstrating vision for what's next. The Research Triangle, where we're located right now, is an example of that. But NCLifeSci is an example of that as well, laying the groundwork for the life sciences industry. Talk about your strategic partnerships that you have that help you tell your story with the legislature and Congress, but also to help workforce development, those kind of things, because we hear that from the folks that we interviewed today repeatedly. They're here because of workforce development and the initiatives the state and that your organization have led. So talk a little bit about the strategic partnerships.
Yeah, and I think you can't really talk about workforce in North Carolina and the life sciences without looking back to early in the 2000s. Again, the park was here by then. Companies were starting to recognize it as a bit of a destination, but we were reaching an inflection point then around workforce. And that was also when tobacco settlement money was being distributed nationally. North Carolina set up the Golden Leaf Foundation, which then was dispensing that money to kind of, again, sort of reimagine what North Carolina could be from a tobacco-oriented society, farming communities. I mean, we still are certainly very much in farming, but just how do we sort of relook at that? And Sam Taylor, who again was with NC Bio at the time, he saw an opportunity and said, hey, let's take some of these dollars and create some educational opportunities. And that's really where BTech, which is the Biomanufacturing Training and Education Center at NC State, when that came into existence. And then similarly with Bright at NC Central, that trains, again, those QC, QA, pharmaceutical science majors, and then the community colleges as well. So those three organizations or three institutes and groups that came together around that time that got funding through NC Bio's help really set that groundwork. And since then, I think, back to the collaboration side is we have maintained, us and the Biotechnology Center and those NC State, NC Central, the community college system, we have stayed closely connected through a program called NC Bio Impact, where we have constant communications. So we're talking about what does industry need. They're talking about how they can serve industry through what it is that they're teaching, so that it's evolved over time. And then they can also say, well, here's where we need help at the General Assembly in order to get the funding that we need to do the things that you need, so that we're putting giving you the right workforce. So I think those educational folks have been instrumental, and the Biotechnology Center obviously is key, and that's something that was very, again, a lot of vision put forth by, early leaders at the state, Jim Hunt and Jim Martin, both, iconic governors here in North Carolina, Democrat and Republican, that put the Biotechnology Center in place and then continued to fund it over now a 40-year period. And they've been able to really be that economic development footprint. North Carolina is always in play because we've got that flag, basically.
You have the vision, and now you've got the infrastructure.
Yeah, and it's also a beautiful facility, convening site. So we take advantage of that. Many other partners too. I would, the universities, obviously, just beyond just those training facilities, but and then economic development groups, patient groups, and all of our member companies. I work very closely with some national organizations, Bio, AdvaMed, depending on what the focus is. So from biotechnology, medical device, the ag side of the business, and then with all the member companies, that the larger ones that do have lobbyists, and then sort of the smaller ones where we wear that hat for them. But, we don't ever do it in a vacuum. We always do it as part of what we can bring for our members. And so it's always, usually there's a member that comes to us and says, hey, we've got something, put a bug in the ear. And then we kind of expand it from there and find out it's something we need to be working on. And so
it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has worked, and it's continued to work. And I mean, it's just so dynamic. It seems that there's so much growth and change, really. We, previous to having you on, the Fujifilm, two of the leaders with Fujifilm were here, and they were talking about their two separate facilities, large investments, and, it just sounds like that might continue as a trend.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I mean, I think we have a lot of the right things in place for those things to continue. I think like anything else, we do need to make sure that we're out in front of the needs that we have. Workforce is obviously a tremendous need. We were successful as a state in getting some dollars from a federal EDA grant, a Build Back Better Regional Challenge grant that the Biotechnology Center actually helped kind of spearhead and bring together. And it brought some dollars in to sort of shore up some programs, expand some programs, create an ambassador program to really get awareness out. We think that Sam Taylor Scholarship Fund that we mentioned today, again, helps bring awareness. We're talking about 5 scholarships a year. That's not a huge number, but in terms of being out there and being able to talk about the impact and the fact that our member companies are putting into that program. We're not asking the state, to do it all, obviously, but they do need to do their part and, help us be successful. And that success is going to breed a better North Carolina, better job opportunities, and then ultimately better health for, the state and the world.
You're right.
So today concludes your annual meeting for 2024. Not all the work you have to do yet, 2024. what's on the horizon for 2025? What are the key issues you'll be thinking about and working on and investing time and energy and resources in?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously a lot will come down to the election, so we're all watching that like everybody else with, bated breath. But I think, I don't know that at the state level, the general makeup of the folks that we have in the General Assembly is going to change. So I think, we'll continue on. Some of the things that we really will be working on is, of course, they didn't do a budget this year, so some of the smaller dollars that aren't necessarily small to us, but smaller, didn't happen. So we'll be looking at a matching program for SBIR funding. We'll be looking at obviously promoting the biotech centers funding, because I think if things like NC Innovation, which I don't know if you've heard about that, but that's a pretty big investment that the state made into early stage universities outside of the immediate triangle area to try to find technologies. Now, all of them will not be in the life sciences, but for those that are,
Right.
The next step for them, and even for those that aren't with federal funding, will be when we become companies, because they're funding pre-company work. When they become companies, they're going to need the next phase. And that's where some of these other programs around innovation step in. So I think a lot of the conversations will be around, how do we make sure that we're shoring up those programs so that that big investment they made on the NC Innovation side
Right.
will ultimately be successful. I think on the federal side, there's been a lot of things that haven't happened this year just due to
Inertia.
usual inertia and gridlock, and then everyone's like, well, we'll just wait until after the election.
Right.
So hopefully we'll start seeing some things move. But some of the things like we talked about today was the EPIC Act and that 9 to 13 pill penalty, we call it, because the small molecules that are usually your pills, your orally administered drugs, they have a 9-year exclusivity window before they're part of a negotiation process versus 13. So it has unfortunately driven investment away from that small molecule. And so we're hoping that there was an EPIC Act that was introduced by 2 North Carolina congressmen, Representative Don Davis and Representative Greg Murphy, both representing Eastern North Carolina districts. But there in that plan or that act would move everything to a 13-year negotiation period. So it put them on equal footing, which would really change how, we're looking at drug development. Because if we should be looking at it through the scientific lens, not through a federal negotiation and
lens,
price
right.
lens. So because and small molecules, as we heard, it's so important to adherence and access, often to blood-brain barrier issues, and as we worry about Alzheimer's and other related neurological products in older Americans, as he noted, as Jude Samolsky noted, will have, I don't know what the percentage was now, but a lot more older adults than
Yes.
younger
Big-
in a few
big
years. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So you'll have a lot to do.
We'll have just a couple of things.
As usual.
Well,
Right.
thank you for allowing us to come and set up in the middle of your annual meeting. It's just it's a dynamic, just wonderful environment for us to be in. The energy fuels us, and we look forward to watching your success and enjoying it and being back here next year.
Well, great. Well, we really appreciate it. I mean, it's a great idea when you all proposed it last
Thank
year,
you.
and I think it's been a huge success, and really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
Excellent. Laura Gunter, NCLifeSci, thank you so much.
Thank you.